As we learned in Captain America Civil War, not all the Avengers get along. To the Infinity War and beyond, it seems like there's always been some trouble brewing behind the scenes. Luckily for us, and for the careers of those involved, any differences off-screen haven't kept the Marvel films down. Join ScreenRant as we go through some behind-the-scenes gossip that's nearly as exciting as the epic battles our heroes fight on screen. Let's go through these 15 Marvel feuds you didn't know about. Jon Favreau has achieved massive success as one of the chief creative forces behind The Mandalorian on Disney+.
This is the way. This is the way.
He's now viewed at Disney as a Star Wars guru who will likely usher the franchise forward following the sequel trilogy. But back in 2008, when he directed the MCU's first installment, Iron Man, he was less of a commodity and had to fight much harder to have his way. The biggest battle he had with Marvel was early in the Iron Man production process. Favreau was adamant that Tony Stark be played by Robert Downey Jr.
I am Iron Man.
While we now know this was an inspired bit of casting, Marvel was worried about RDJ's prior history of substance abuse and jail time. Ultimately, Robert Downey Jr. cleaned up his act. The film resuscitated RDJ's career and made Tony Stark into an icon. When Captain Marvel's standalone film was announced, fans and industry experts alike expected the Captain, aka Carol Danvers, to be Tony Stark's replacement as head of the Avengers in forthcoming films. After all, this tough-talking intergalactic freedom fighter is one of the most powerful superheroes in the Marvel Universe. Yet, Brie Larson's press tours for the MCU movies has been met with mixed reviews.
Is that like a personal attack or something? Or...
Some fans found her attitude to be condescending.
I mean... why?
Nitpicky commentators have dissected cast interviews, noting that the body language of Larson's co-stars indicates some kind of tension between them and the actress. Don Cheadle took to Twitter to calm fans down, saying, quote, "Whoever you are, you're reading in, take a break from your detective work. We're all good. Hope you enjoy the movie." End quote. While Brie Larson has called out the film reviewing community for not being inclusive enough,
is that like a personal attack or something? Or...
Natalie Portman called out Marvel for not including one woman's vision when it came to Thor: Dark World. Originally, director Patty Jenkins was slated to direct Thor: Dark World, but after creative differences, the director left the project. Apparently, Jenkins envisioned a film that focused exclusively on the tragic romance between Thor and Portman's Jane Foster. When Marvel abandoned her idea, Portman made her displeasure known, and Natalie Portman received little screen time in the MCU films following Dark World. That said, she'll be back with a vengeance in Thor: Love and Thunder. And Jenkins has been doing pretty well herself, going on to direct Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984. Idris Elba has been pretty diplomatic on and off film sets, and his cool and calm demeanor has led many fans to consider him to be a top contender for big-time roles like James Bond. When filming Thor, however, he started to lose his cool. The word on the street is, the Marvel contracts are fairly binding documents. Even if your role is a smaller supporting part, any reshoots take precedence over any other movie you may be involved in. So when Thor: Dark World required some reshoots after principal photography wrapped, Idris had to leave the set of Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, to appear as Heimdall in a short scene. He called the event torture, but later walked back his comments. While Iron Man led the pack of the MCU's standalone origin films, the Avengers put Marvel Studios on the map. The 2012 team-up movie changed everything we thought was possible with superhero films. For much of its success, you can thank director Joss Whedon. Despite all of his accomplishments, however, the making of its sequel, Avengers: Age of Ultron, was not a walk in the park. The biggest sticking points were the fact that Marvel pushed for Whedon to include special nods and references to Marvel Comics' properties that Whedon felt detracted from the main story. Plus, he had to fight hard to keep the sequence with Hawkeye and his family on their farm. Whedon later left Marvel to work for the DCEU. Since his first appearance in 2012's Avengers film, Mark Ruffalo has been a fantastic Hulk, injecting some much-needed humor and heart into his performance as Bruce Banner.
I see this as an absolute win.
But does anyone remember Edward Norton's portrayal in 2008's The Incredible Hulk? The actor went to great lengths to rewrite the script for that film at every turn, reportedly turning in new pages of dialogue on most days of shooting. While The Incredible Hulk's director, Louis Leterrier, appeared to side with Norton, the studio was not happy. The famously demanding actor parted ways with Marvel Studios following the release of the second MCU film. Following this, Ruffalo was hired for future installments. Director Alan Taylor has made a name for himself spearheading epic episodes of big-budget television shows. Following his success with Game of Thrones, having directed the famously subversive 9th and 10th episodes of Season 1, Taylor was tapped to direct Thor: Dark World. This seemed like a contentious set, what with Natalie Portman angry over Patty Jenkins getting the boot, and Idris Elba miffed over reshoots. Taylor was no different. He later complained that Marvel fought many of his creative decisions. They ultimately ignored many of his choices in the final cut of the film that was released to the public. Marvel Studios is one of the few film companies where its head is a household name. Kevin Feige has been in charge of the industry powerhouse as its president since 2007, and much of its success is thanks to his shrewd sensibilities. But it always hasn't been smooth sailing for the president. He's been engaged in a bitter battle with Marvel Entertainment CEO Ike Perlmutter for much of his tenure. Perlmutter is basically in control of the comics and the TV shows. Since Feige and Perlmutter don't usually see eye to eye, their disagreements stem from the fact that Feige wants his movies to go for broke, while Perlmutter prefers to play it safe to save money. Another actor who once seemed like a bright spot in the MCU is Terrence Howard.
Next time, baby.
He played Rhodey in 2008's Iron Man, but went the way of Edward Norton soon after. When asked why he was replaced by Don Cheadle for the sequels, Howard was upfront about his feelings. He blamed Robert Downey Jr.'s hefty paycheck for why he was let go, saying that Marvel couldn't afford to continue paying his salary. This comment seems like it's not only a swipe at RDJ's pay, but also a dig at Don Cheadle's worth. While we respect both Rhodey's, we gotta say that Cheadle's portrayal of War Machine has more than earned him a top spot on the Avengers roster. Feige and Perlmutter's feud has impacted the way that the Marvel movies and TV shows play off each other, and the actors have noticed. Chloe Bennett, star of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., has been upfront about the fact that the show's cast and crew felt ignored by Marvel Studios' top brass. While the show has included some crossover events, references, and cameos from MCU stars, Marvel Studio mandates keep the show from referencing certain storylines and including certain story elements. In the short run, it limited Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D's storytelling potential. In the long run, it hurt the series' ratings. Bennett was not imagining the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe often neglected the show. Despite the success of Iron Man 2 was a tougher sell for audiences and critics. It hurt Jon Favreau standing in the MCU for a long time, although he's now a superstar over at Lucasfilm and still appears in the Marvel films as Happy Hogan.
You do not ghost Nick Fury.
One Iron Man 2 participant who isn't happy is Mickey Rourke. The famously prickly actor was considered difficult to work with, but was given a lot of free rein on set. During multiple takes, he would often improvise to add some depth to his character. Apparently, most of his choices were edited out of the finished film, and this ticked Rourke off so much that he blasted Marvel while doing press for his follow-up movie, Sin City 2. We live in an era where many fans call for a level of diversity among the ranks of their superheroes that matches the diversity we see in our everyday lives. So when Marvel decided to bring one of their martial arts-centric characters to television, fans were none too pleased with the casting of a white guy. Finn Jones of Game of Thrones fame was awarded the role of Iron Fist, and while the character in the comics is described as a blonde man, some fans felt that this was Marvel's opportunity to diversify their roster with an Asian actor. The leader of the critics was writer Marjorie Liu. As an Asian American writer employed by Marvel, Liu pledged to not watch the show with Jones in the lead. Once upon a time, Sony had the film rights to some of Marvel's properties, specifically their most popular superhero.
They love me.
While Sony launched the big screen franchise with Tobey Maguire's successful Spider-Man trilogy, they squeezed out 2 films in a less than successful reboot of the franchise a few years following Spider-Man 3. The Spider-Man series seemed to go bust until an agreement was made and Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man joined the MCU. That said, Sony revoked the character and talks between Marvel and Sony broke down. The studio feud was likely played out in the press so one side could force the other's hand in negotiations. This standoff ultimately paid off when Holland's Spider-Man was signed back on for more Marvel films. As we said before, Feige's altercations with Ike Perlmutter have led to some tensions between the Marvel movies and TV shows. Apparently, the Feige-Perlmutter fight even spread over to the development of Marvel's Inhumans. The show was originally pitched as a film, but Perlmutter's constant demands on the production led Feige to give it up. ABC then took it on as a TV project, only to air 8 episodes before canceling it in 2018. But these feuds don't have as wide a reach as the original battle between the MCU and 20th Century Fox. Once the MCU was born, Fox faced competition from the comic book company they once partnered with. While several X-Men films and the Deadpool movies received much love from fans and critics, the studio struggled to maintain a quality that guaranteed box office success. Both sides fought dirty, with Marvel going so far as to cancel the Fantastic Four comics to hurt Fox's films. Ultimately, Fox was bought by Disney. While this lack of studio competition is scary for the movie business, if there's any silver lining, it's that we may get MCU versions of X-Men and Fantastic Four sooner rather than later. Are these feuds worth all of the fuss? But are there any well-known beefs that we may have missed? And do you have any scoops on MCU fights that we never knew about? Clue us in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to ScreenRant for more videos like this one. See you later.